Hello everyone and welcome to the session on culture ad, not culture fit. It's going to be an interesting conversation. It's going to be a quick fire half an hour. This subject area is vast and wide, and condensing it down to half an hour probably doesn't do it the justice it deserves, but at least we're going to make a start. Just before I let my panelists introduce themselves, bit about me. So my name's Gary. I co-founded a company called Project 23, and we help organisations create inclusive cultures. That's mainly within the media and advertising sector, but beyond that as well. Culture is something which I am passionate about, and I believe there is nothing stronger that can influence a company's success and longevity than its culture. So that'll be an interesting lens to put on the whole culture fit topic. Okay, hand it over to my panelists then. Saad, do you want to go first, introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Saad Al Saraf. I'm founder of the first multicultural ad agency in the UK, Diversity and Multicultural, 30 years ago. And I've been pushing the diversity agenda ever since.
Thank you. Lauren, do you want to go?
I'm Lauren Ogundeko, and I am from PhD Media. I look after digital media. I'm also a board director, and I help clients with strategic digital media planning in the performance space. And I've been in the industry for probably about 16 years now.
Lovely. And who should we go? Go on, Caroline.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Caroline Forbes. I work at Clear Channel UK, a media owner, outdoor media owner. My role over there is specialist partner. I'm also a Fairness Exec sponsor, and I sit on the boards of Brixton Finishing School and 56 Black Men.
Lovely. And just Curtis.
Hi, I'm Curtis Weir. I am the Out of Home Group Director at Publicis Media UK. Been in the industry for just short of 14 years. I started in digital, working at independent agencies. Most of them are acquired by holding companies now, and made the switch to move into out of home around 2011. So just tipping having more out of home experience than digital experience now.
Lovely, thank you all. And firstly, just a personal thank you from me. What a great panel we have, and I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone's opinion on the subject. It's certainly my belief, and it's the belief of my organisation, that before we go through a period of learning, so before we really talk about what culture ad can give us, I think we need to unlearn certain elements of how we've been operating. So thinking about the culture of advertising, the culture of media, and what culture fit has meant now, has meant in the past, where have we gone wrong, and how come we are still having this conversation? Lauren, can I ask you that question, please?
So for me, culture fit is a label that allows organisations to, in some ways, I don't want to use the word discriminate because I think that's a bit harsh, because culture is good, but it can seep into discrimination when you're looking for people who look like you, who act like you, who, fit that mini-me phenomenon. It can start to alienate people from a diverse background. But culture is actually a good thing for organisations to have, because it outlines their systems, their belief, how the leadership's structured, what sort of customs they've got, the company's goals, the work style. So it's important to have culture, but it's important to understand how people will add to that culture, as opposed to using it as a barrier to stop people from, flourishing that might be a bit different from the culture.
Definitely, I 100% agree with that. So Caroline, where do you think we've gone wrong as an industry?
I think going wrong is probably, again, it's hard to say that we've gone wrong. I think the media industry is made up of a white majority. And so it's easy, like, kind of alluding to what Lauren was saying, for us to kind of just employ and bring in people who are in our immediate circles, and that look like me or look like the majority. And so I think that's probably been part of the media industry's issue kind of over the last, well, few decades, in that the majority is white. So therefore, we're hiring in a lot of people from that particular background. And so diversifying teams and bringing in people from different cultural backgrounds and different kind of racial backgrounds means that in the hiring process, you get to diversify that work, that pipeline, that talent pipeline.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if I think back to my experience, all too often it was left to the individual hiring manager to make those calls. I don't know if anyone has experienced anything different to that, but the way I always, if you like, didn't perform as I would do now is the fact that, yeah, you hire like for like, or you take recommendations and you just try and get people that you get on with without challenging yourself. We always talk about the fact that inclusion is really easy if everyone's the same. Obviously it makes sense, right? So you've been talking about this for decades.
Yes.
How come we're still here talking about it?
I must say there's been quite a few things here. I mean, in my work with the IPA Ethnic Diversity Forum, I tried to put the building blocks. For example, we did reports to generate awareness within brands and companies. And we did an audit. We wanted all the agencies to report on the level of diversity, not just at lower level, but even at board level. I know it's quite uncomfortable for quite a lot of companies. I think what it is, it's not just an ad agency problem, it's a societal problem. We worked, a lot of us have worked quite hard on this issue, but if I can remind you, in the last 3 years, we've had culture bashing by Trump in the United States and by the politicians here coming up with inflammatory languages on Brexit and migrants. And so they were muddying the whole thing between diversity and immigrants and whatever. And for marketeers bombarded by negative stories, it's bound to have some sort of effect. So we need to hold them to account. There is no good just now because you're to applaud doctors of diverse background and nurses because you need them now. Suddenly you realized, oh my God, so I need these guys because my life is dependent on them. People can see through all of this now. So if you really want to have a proper, diverse and inclusive agency, you need to really get the buy-in from the CEOs, from the board directors, and get people who are different and not just mold them into your agency, but learn from them and let them learn from each other. Because after all, we're apart from the fact that it is useful and it's valuable, and we prove that. The fact now in digital, we are all talking about having personalized messages. And if you are looking at the London population, where 50% of the population are multicultural, how much do you know about these audiences? How much do you know where they come from? Their buying patterns, what triggers influence them to buy? All of these things are crucial and they're implemented in the digital sphere. Yet when it comes in putting it in traditional whatever, they just shy away and they just dismiss the whole thing. We need a commitment. I know we have the odds against us because politicians always use culture bashing. Comedians use culture bashing as well. So we're basically swimming against the tide. But I can see we're into a better place now. We've got lots of people. We've got people of diverse backgrounds, not just multicultural, who are supporting the Black Lives Matter, who are coming to our way of thinking. So there is a lot of positivity that comes out of it compared for a few decades ago, as you said.
I think you're spot on, actually. And I would almost like to play the devil's advocate in the room in terms of, I think the case for it and the thinking behind it and the moral implications behind it are clear for everyone to see. And it would take a brave person to almost go against that. So we can all agree in principle that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
when it comes to the crunch, when I need to fill a role, when I don't have many applicants, when my client's on my back, do we stick to those principles? Or do we just know someone who's looking for a role and I can fill that seat next week? What, Curtis, you must have experienced that kind of agency roles are always there, but always filled pretty quick. And there's always the pressure from the client as well.
Yeah, I mean, inevitably, there's always business pressures, right? That's just the be all and end all of good business, and may more of them come because a productive business is full of business pressures. But I think our industry is quite a social industry. It's a small industry. It's closed as well, and I think the network that we have in 2020 has to be a network that reaches out to speak to people who aren't necessarily part of it. We need the fresh thinking, we need the new ideas, we need the new viewpoints in order to stay relevant. So it's incumbent on our industry to start reaching out to communities that aren't necessarily the traditional spaces. I'm a member of Media for All, and one of the things that we talk about very frequently that's referenced is how much change happened in the late 70s, early 80s as a result of expanding the backgrounds of people in terms of class to be included in advertising. And I think we're seeing the same arguments and same discussions that we've had in terms of women and representation in senior parts of the industry, and ultimately now with people of Black and multi-ethnic backgrounds. But the challenges are different for all of those. They're all multifaceted and they obviously do interconnect. But I think the way that we, in the long term, deal with that is by actively going and sourcing, making sure that we have we have apprenticeship schemes that look for people from different backgrounds and nurtures talent in the first instance, so that there is a bigger pool to reach. In terms of the business pressures, they exist and they work across so many different dynamics. I think I've personally started to think about what's needed for my teams, not just a seat to fill, but what's needed in the midterm and the long term, in a sustainable fashion. Do you need more creative thinkers? Do you need more outspoken people to try and think about team member fit, on a character level and on a perspective level? And I think taking that attitude means that you would want to go and look further and beyond kind of, the most immediate and the most salient people.
Yeah.
Can I add a point about I don't think the issue is only obviously at that entry and recruitment level. I look at boards of top agencies, I look at boards of top media owners, of top clients even, and it's white, it's male, and it's middle class.
Yeah.
I can see plenty of great role models at middle management and junior levels. I don't see many great role models at that senior level. How do we get people moving through the ranks? I'm going to throw that out to anyone who wants to answer it.
I don't mind answering that. So we, myself and our group CEO, Dan Clays, did a panel actually yesterday, which was the Media for All panel, which I'm also a member of. And we talked about the fact that we need to have coaching and sponsoring support for people to be able to accelerate into those roles. There are so many brilliant Black, Indian, Chinese. I mean, I don't like to use the term BAME. That's another panel. That don't get. There's a glass ceiling that they don't get past, and in order to get promoted, you've got to leave the job that you're in. The other thing is that the people at the top have to step aside and make room for those people to enter into those roles. Coming from a digital background as well and independent agencies, we're so used to moving around so much in our roles. You come to media agencies and you have people that have probably been in their roles for a really long time.
True.
And that compounds the problem even more, because you do not know, as a Black person, right, where's my next step? Where do I go to? So there has to be a conscious effort in training the people that don't normally get access to the things that you need to be a leader, whether it's commercial training, negotiation training, client-facing training, all those things that they say is missing. How can we get people to have that skill set so that they can be comparable to be able to move into those roles, and it's allowing them to actually be able to compete properly. That's going to be the key decider.
I think it's a great point, and thinking about adding to our culture through different people, different faces, people of colour. Does anyone have any advice and guidance of how to not only recruit, but how then to make people stay, make people feel like they belong, how to get them to really deliver on what they want to deliver on? I always think about how, yeah, it's great to get the talent in, but then do we just assimilate them to the way we work, or do we actually create something different where they can thrive too?
I would say it would be how well we structure our organizations. If we are willing to sort of make people welcome and understand a bit more. I know it's uncomfortable sometimes, you know, for people or to interact with someone of different culture. But I think if we are open and we're willing to learn, and we learn from each other and understand each other, so we can go out, all of us together, and I can tell you about my Middle Eastern culture, and I tell you about what I can do and I can't do, you will be more accepting and supporting me. And that is, I think, the foundation of a good, open, transparent, diverse, and inclusive organization. And once you achieve that, then you got a sort of phenomenal company to be in. And talking about Lauren, when we did an audit, I did an audit for a few years on the representation. We did not find a problem in digital agencies. They're quite ahead. It's the traditional model agencies where they were lacking behind, where you were referring to all these guys in media who've been there for 25 years or 35 years. And the breaking that glass ceiling was quite, there was a lot of resistance and friction there, where the digital lot, God bless them, they were ahead of the game. You know, they had no problem. It reminds me of when Trump called for the tech companies in Silicon Valley. And he was shocked because he saw Asians and others in Microsoft and YouTube and Google, whatever. And he commented to some of his guys, where are the actual heads and CEOs? You know, so they are much more open and relaxed about it. And they benefited tremendously out of this openness, you know, because there is definitely a value. I was speaking to some clients and they said, you know, there's always a value when we have people who are rich with different cultures. When we go to sign deals in China or Middle East or any other country, we almost have the edge over other companies, and we need to drive that through organizations. There is added value here. You know, there is, it makes a huge difference.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, just to add to that point, Saad's point, I think, you know, it is about that value. It's about what the organisation actually values in its people and its culture. And it's, you know, it's about creating environments where people have the freedom and have the permission to be themselves at work, and that, you know, their colleagues are going to, you know, value who they are. And what they bring to the table, what their culture brings to the table, you know, what their background brings to the table. That value add is really important, and I think, you know, that's exactly what we're talking about today. But it's about kind of organisations recognising that cultural richness that you get from diverse teams is the value, and embracing that, and not trying to get them to fit to what is the norm or what is, you know, the status quo. is where they're going to see kind of real progress.
I'm still agree. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna build upon that and challenge you actually to all give me some practical ways that you can do that. How in the day to day, how do we practically do, you know, the work we do, the processes that we're in, to make sure that people do feel like they are free and like they can bring themselves to work and can express themselves how they want? What are the practical guidance here?
I've got a couple. My very first experience at my first agency, Profero, they had a buddying scheme. So as soon as you joined, I was buddied with Happy from the finance team as a grad straight into the industry. Someone who very much understood the culture and the values and could help me to understand and feel part of them, but was outside of my line management structure and the team that I work day to day with. And I think that's why, you know, initiatives inside of agencies such as mentor schemes are so important, because it's important to be able to model and gain the experience of understanding how organization works outside of not just your line management and your department and team, but across the business. I'm a big component of like you know, try relationships. You know, there's something about the strength of a triangle, and just, you know, when you have 3 people connecting and working from different parts of businesses, there's enough space for everyone to bring something different to them and kind of support each other. There's just a cumulative effect there. So I feel like not just sitting in those, you know, our regular organograms and, you know, tree-like structures, but kind of networking within the business is really important. And for part of the organization you're in to actively encourage and have initiatives to allow that.
Yeah, I love that. I think culture, department to department, can change so differently, right? So having that dialogue across departments, across different sectors, and I love that tri-relationship idea. It's almost enhances that one-to-one type thing. So yeah, thank you, Curtis. Yeah,
sure.
Sorry, Curtis.
I was just going to say, who wouldn't want a friend in the finance department?
We all need that.
Something I was going to add to that. So we're looking at cross-agency mentoring, because we're part of a network. We can benefit from the fact that there's 4 media agencies within the Omnicom group, so we can cross-mentor quite nicely. We're also looking at reverse mentoring, so having a younger individual mentor someone more senior, because, you know, that you do lack you get to a point where you're a bit out of touch, and it happens to all of us. We grow in our career, we don't know the challenges that facing younger people. You know, we're all in our homes, but some younger person is sharing a house with 4 other people who are they probably don't have good broadband, and they're probably struggling more than we are at the moment. So having, you know, those insights from somebody younger to somebody a bit more senior is really valuable. We're also looking at sponsoring, so senior people sponsoring somebody more junior, and supporting them throughout their career growth, and actually having accountability for that. So if I sponsor somebody, part of my objectives when I do my PDP will be on that person's growth, and it puts that accountability straight into the business and straight into that person's hands, that, you know, you are responsible for this person's future. And a few other initiatives we're looking at, but it's the practical things to really change the mindset of the business and move towards a more culture ad as a more rather than a culture fit, just to borrow the strapline for the panel.
I love that, Lauren. And from what I've seen, it's that hard line accountability that really makes a difference. It's affect people's bonuses, affect people's pay packets, then you'll see change happen. I'm a massive advocate of that for sure. I want to shift the conversation slightly. I want to talk about the responsibility advertising has as an industry on wider society, and why it's vital that we do this work within our industry and how that can then have positive effects for the people we reach. Curtis, I remember you had quite a strong opinion on this.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my point around us being a closed industry and needing to be more and more open. I don't think, particularly on, you know, normally I refer to someone who doesn't work in the industry when they ask me, what do I do? I say, have you seen Mad Men? And they normally go, oh yeah. And I go, oh yeah, that's not me. I don't do that. You know, if you even remember the media character in the film. But actually, every time I speak to new starters and grads in our industry, I remind them actually how important the media part is to the overall bit. It's not necessarily being seen as the most glamorous part, despite, you know, the fact that we're not shy of a get together and a social. But more importantly, it's the part of the business that's responsible for putting messages out in the public space. You know, we are the voice of our audiences amongst our other partners and practitioners and sister agencies. And I think we need to see ourselves as curators of culture and messages that go out and are exposed, you know, reach and connect hopefully with the public. So I kind of try to do my very best to make people aware that what they do, as you kind of go through the cycles of campaign by campaign, is actually something that's quite important, that touches and reaches people. I know particularly working in out of home, it's easier for me to point and say, okay, yeah, that ad was placed there by, you know, a member of my team, or you know, we placed that, and start to then be able to have people feel that connection in their professional life and on behalf of their clients as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm just conscious of time. What I wanted to do is give everyone an opportunity to almost have a 30-second statement or whatever they want to say to finish off. It can be about that, it can be about something else, but a quick, almost around the room with a closing thought, I guess. Who would like to go first? Who's ready for a closing thought?
I don't mind going. So I think probably my closing statement will probably be around this idea of diversity of thought, and not diversity of thought from the place of the majority that the kind of white majority that media and Adland is made up of at the moment, but I'm talking about from a place that is racially and culturally diverse, that brings for kind of a rich kind of majority. So that's the type of diversity of thought that I think, you know, we need to be striving to and working towards. You know, I'm a big believer in that in order for us to create a workplace environment where we all feel comfortable, we need this idea, and it's shaped by culture, it's shaped by the background, it's shaped by experiences and personalities, and if we have this kind of rich blend in the media industry, talking about kind of affecting the society in which we live in, I think we're much better positioned in order to do that better.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah, I would say, you know, we're basically we are sort of, we have a responsibility to a more diverse society we live in, and we need to understand, and we need to respect, and we need to be honest as well. You know, we have a service and a duty to do, and it's not good, and no agency can get away with addressing this diverse, beautiful society and just be of one culture and one thought, because they're going to get found out, because we are in a much more transparent society. I mean, look at Floyd. His death was filmed, and it rocked America. We cannot get away. No organization can get away now with glossy brochures and ticking boxes about diversity and inclusion. They need to practice it. They need to own it. They need to understand it, and they practice what they do. Otherwise, they lose out in the long run.
Thank you, Saad. Lauren, do you want to go?
Yeah, I think for me, I will say that we've seen all the stats in terms of revenue to be made from being more diverse. But further from that, if you continue to hire for cultural fit, you're going to continue to reinforce unconscious bias. You're not going to get, ample creativity. And if you're a personal fit, you will fit in because you're good, not because you fit a culture. And I think it's important for the industry on a whole to start to embrace more diversity, just because the faux pas that we've seen with some advertisers who didn't have a Black person in the room, an Indian person in the room, or a Chinese person in the room, has meant that there were some ads that went out that were really, really problematic. Yep. So you have to sort of have those people in the room, have those structures in place to ensure that we're moving forward as a society and getting proper innovative and creative ideas through.
Thank you, Lauren. Curtis, I'm going to give you 20 seconds.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll go as far as saying that our industry's existence depends on this.
I love it.
I really feel that actually, that obviously we talk about the ethical, the business imperative and the commercial imperative in terms of diversity, but I think this is about regenerating, incorporating the best of what our industry has to offer. And that enough, it makes it something that we need to do now and prioritize.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you for that amazing conversation. We could talk all day on this, no doubt. But thanks for your contribution. And if you've tuned in, thank you for listening to this. Hope you found it useful. Thanks.